Good afternoon, everyone. Another week has passed in NFL football, and who would have thought that Charlie was right in America's game of the week? Broncos Bears has passed by, a 21-point lead erased. Justin Fields and Russell Wilson dueling possibly the best quarterback duel of the week, unironically. Both came to play with their A game. Charlie called it. And here we are, minus one member. Miss you, Zach. Here we are to talk about Week 4 and the NFL season as a whole. Here with me, I have Tev and Charlie. We are the SRTFP crew. And without further ado, we're going to get right into it, guys. What better place to start than Andy's room, right? London on Sunday morning, we got to see Toy Story football between the Atlanta Falcons and the Jacksonville Jaguars. How are we feeling about watching those little piles of dust and little blazing boots on the screen and all the crazy touchdown bullshit that was?
Honestly, it was a pretty fun, interesting watch. Like, I kind of liked the concept of it. It was very interesting. It was such a cool way to watch football. Especially if you have little kids that want to get into football, it's a really cool way to adapt like Disney and football. I think it's a pretty good concept, and I think they should do more of it pretty often.
Two sides to the coin, it freaked me. The chains when it was there's some bugs, obviously, but it was 3rd and 20 at one point. And seeing that marker going all the way freaked me out. But hey, to each your own.
I did not have ESPN Plus. I caught an illegal stream of the game, so I had to make do with what I got. I got to see some of the highlights. I got to see the little fire coming out of everyone's blazing speed. I got to see the pick six that Desmond Ridder threw in such a beautiful, simple fashion. It reminded me of an old school football video game. And what I saw on the field between the Jaguars and the Falcons was one team trying to keep it old school and kind of failing. You have weapons like Bijan Robinson, you have weapons like Drake London, you have weapons like Kyle Pitts. And instead of seeing them being properly utilized, we see them having to bear with a very inexperienced Desmond Ridder. 9 of 14 at the half, 73 yards, 2 interceptions. How are we feeling about this Falcons team?
It was lackluster at points. It felt like we were watching potentially a bad OC or a bad scheme. And we got to get to the point and pointing fingers at players, and players got to take accountability. Like you said, the numbers for Desmond Ridder, 19 for 31, 191 yards, a TD, and 2 interceptions, including that pick six. You can't have numbers like that, especially the way that you play football. That team, that run-heavy offense, you can't have numbers like that as a quarterback. You got to be more of a game manager and not throw 2 picks, including a pick six. And when they do call your name to throw those goal line fades or get those red zone touchdowns, you got to be able to be more accurate. That's just not suitable.
Right.
Like what Tev said, this offense is basically one-dimensional. Bijan had a very good game with 14 carries, 105 yards, 7.5 per carry, and also having 5 catches through the air. But Desmond Ridder needs to step up. He needs to look more poised in the pocket. You cannot afford, especially having 2 interception games, especially getting one taken to the house. I think it's the coaching. I think it's the quarterback. Arthur Smith just came out saying they're going to stick with Ridder, but I don't know how long he's going to stick with him until they're going to try to call Taylor Heineke's name. But on the other side for the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence looked pretty solid with 23 completions out of 30 attempts for 207 yards and a touchdown. Looked pretty solid. Christian Kirk, couple of bounce-back game weeks with about 8 catches, 84 yards going into this week. Calvin Ridley was the only sole person on that Jaguars offense to score a touchdown, but he didn't really do anything after that. He had A.J. Terrell locking him up for most of the game. Travis Etienne only had 20 carries for 55 yards. Looked pretty inefficient. For me, honestly, if you were Doug Peterson, I would try to get the rookie more involved, Tank Bigsby, running back out of Auburn. I think he's going to be a pretty good backup running back, especially for later half in the year. But the Jaguars just came in there and they dominated. They embarrassed this Falcons team. Hopefully next week, Arthur Smith can come back and maybe put a little bit more passing volume into this offense.
I don't think that's going to be the move as long as Desmond Ritter's the quarterback. All he has to do is be the game manager. We've seen them try. We've seen him encounter some success last year. I think in close to 150 passing attempts, he only threw one interception. Whereas now we see interceptions kind of becoming an issue. We kind of see Desmond Ritter struggling with his throws. Sometimes we see him throw off kilter. I think about the pass just a week ago against the Packers in the red zone. He was throwing it while falling to the ground. It was just very haphazardous. It's not the type of throw you want your game manager to make. That's not what Alex Smith would do. And thus, I just have a hard time believing that the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't know why I said the Chiefs. I think I was thinking about Alex Smith. I got in my daydreams about Alex Smith there. But I just think that this Atlanta Falcons team is very promising, very talented, very well coached too. However, there are certain pieces that aren't being properly utilized. They're getting there with Bijan. In the touchdown drive, he's responsible for that. He had that 38-yard scamper. But Drake London is really just a red zone guy. They haven't fully utilized his capabilities besides just being a big body guy, big catch radius. And they do utilize it in the red zone to their credit. But let's talk about Kyle Pitts for a second. Because Kyle Pitts got out targeted by Jonnu Smith, the backup tight end for the Falcons. Tev, you brought this up to me before the podcast. Where do we feel like we see Kyle Pitts going? Because Atlanta doesn't seem to be a scheme fit for him. They like running those big two blocking tight ends. Jonnu Smith seems to be a bit of a fit, and I'm starting to worry that Kyle Pitts is not.
So when Atlanta drafted him, it was kind of this is a big push for them. They go get their quarterback in the future, and it'll be a good pairing. I don't think they expected Arthur Smith to go in there and become that scheme fit and become that type of coach and that type of team, and then follow up and draft Drake London, and then draft Bijan again. So to fit scheme that doesn't fit Kyle Pitts. So at this point, I think they got to stop strong-arming it. Let him go. I don't say let him go to his dire situation, but I feel like almost any other situation would be better for him. He's a young tight end. He's a massive threat. He has really good footwork to the point where he could line up in the slot, like you were saying off camera with me, where he could be that slot threat and be that different tight end that we expected him to be out of college. It's either that or it's something outside that we're not seeing, the public's not seeing. And he really isn't that generational tight end that we think he is. And Atlanta's doing a good job of covering it up to not make it look like, we drafted a bust.
Yeah, it's just, in reality is you can't be outperformed by players like Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill has shown his value to the Saints in this short time, these 4 weeks that we've seen, and Kyle Pitts has a touchdown, sure, but he continuously seems to be under-involved in this offense. And because of the high talent ceiling he came out with, the Calvin Johnson comparisons even, I feel like teams like even the Lions should give him a look. I think that a team that has an explosive passing offense could possibly find a buy low candidate in a guy like Kyle Pitts, because this guy is going to end up exploding. That athleticism shows. He gets deep, and when he does, he makes himself utilized. The problem is, I believe, that Arthur Smith, the Tennessee Titans inspired offense that Arthur Smith came with from Tennessee as their offensive coordinator, Kyle Pitts seems to be the biggest detriment due to it. And I know we've talked a little bit about the Falcons, and before we move on to other games, I also wanted to just credit the Jaguars for going in there and taking care of business. They make London look like home. That's why they always recruit him to play in London. Jacksonville has Trevor Lawrence, played efficient. I know Charlie was saying ETN struggled, and Ridley should still be getting involved. But overall, solid performance on the Jaguars. We all predicted, I know, Tev, you weren't here, we all predicted the Jaguars to win, and they gave us no reason to doubt that. So without further ado, I'm going to bring us to what I believe was supposed to be the game of the week, but ended up being a little bit of a stomp-a-rump. And that would be the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. This game, not quite like last week. How do we think about the Bills putting up 48 on the Dolphins?
I kind of expected it because, did you really expect the Dolphins to go in there and put up a bunch of points against this elite defense? This is not the Denver Broncos. This is the Buffalo Bills defense that puts the pressure on the quarterback, and you can tell with Tua Tagovailoa only having like a touchdown and throwing a rarely interception, which he doesn't really do that often. And Devon Achane still, honestly, even though that they got stomped, Devon Achane looked really good. He had 8 carries for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Still had a dominating performance. Tyreek Hill looked like he got locked up from Tre'Davious White, who also got a really bad Achilles injury. Could be a season ender. But Tyreek Hill had 3 for 58. Waddle came back, looked pretty solid, 4 for 46. Berrios, Jets legend, caught 6 passes, 43 yards, and a touchdown. But on the Bills side of it, I think Josh Allen played spectacular. He tends to own the Dolphins. He tends to do that with 21 completions out of 25 attempts, very accurate, 320 yards and 4 touchdowns. James Cook was the lead guy with 12 carries, 29 yards. Pretty iffy day, but he still had the touchdown, still contribute to this offense. And Stephon Diggs just went nuclear for 6 for 120 and 3 touchdowns. He torched its defense.
This Dolphins defense
Diggs really misses Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, and it'll be some time before they get him back. I was a little floored that this happened. Obviously, I didn't see the Dolphins putting up 48 on the Bills. I just really didn't see the Bills putting up 48 on the Dolphins either. A lot of the stats that I had pointing out, Stephon Diggs, 6 catches, 120 yards, 3 touchdowns, you already mentioned. James Cook made it into the end zone. We've talked about how that seems to always be given the goal line opportunities to other running backs like Latavius Murray, Damian Harris. I think that we are seeing now this Bills team learn how to utilize him. And while he had close to 2.5 yards per carry rate, he also had a 48-yard catch. So players are playing for the Bills, and this Dolphins defense did not live up to expectations. I think they are missing a few guys. When you look at the Bills defense and the names that line the Bills defense, even without Von Miller, I know Trey White's out now, but that secondary is effective, and they came to play. They shut down some of the better receivers in the league in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So I have to give a lot of credit to the Bills for making the Dolphins look humbled this past week.
Yeah, shout out to Damar Hamlin, first game back in the year.
Made all the difference. 1-0 with Damar Hamlin. Stats speak for themselves.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you remember, I said this a couple weeks ago. I said that both of them probably subliminally sent a message when they both put up those massive wins before going against each other. And I think Buffalo finished out the message this week. They're like, all right, put up that on us. We're ready for you. We built this team to win this division, not only win this division, but to win a Super Bowl. And we're seeing it. They're really, really playing hot. I think injury or something else might be the only thing to stop them, or themselves might be the only thing to stop them from winning it all.
Yeah, they're starting to look scary out here. Miami, I still have high hopes for Miami. I think they're built very uniquely. I think they have a coach that knows how to utilize their strengths. I'm not ready to give up on Miami yet. I'm still taking Miami to go all the way to the Super Bowl this year. I don't think the Chiefs have it. I don't even think the Bills have it. I think that the Bills have maybe screwed themselves into motivating the Dolphins to come back better than ever. So that's how I see that going down. Moving forward, I wanted to talk about the game that Charlie prophetizes the game of the week, and relatively rightfully so. The game we just talked about with the Bills and the Dolphins was 3-4 scores, 48-20. What we're seeing from the Bears and Broncos, 21-point comeback from 28-7. We saw Russell Wilson look sharp. We saw Justin Fields look fantastic. For most part of the game, only had one incompletion before throwing a late interception. He lost a fumble. He had some mistakes along the way, but by far his best game of the season. Felt like the game that the Bears were going to run away with, and they were. before Russell Wilson got it going with players like Brandon Johnson. 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 75% completion rate. Russell Wilson is looking like the guy that we saw in Seattle once again. How do we feel about this? How do we feel about either quarterbacks? Because both have kind of bounced back this week.
Absolutely. Well, since I am the person who gets every game right. But yeah, if you want a definition of cinema, a 10 out of 10 movie that you want to tell your kids in the next 20 years, this Broncos-Bears game is the definition of cinema. A lot of backstabbing, betrayal, hardship, determination. That's the definition of this game. With Justin Fields actually having a very good day, throwing 335 passing yards through the air, 4 touchdowns. He also had 4 carries, 25 yards through the ground as well. But there was another name that I want to talk about in this game, someone that I didn't really know about. It is actually the Broncos running back, Jaleel McLaughlin, with Javonte Williams going out early in the game, not really being very efficient coming off the ACL injury, that he actually stepped up. He had 77 carries for 72 yards, had a couple of big plays, also had 3 catches for 32 yards and a touchdown, which he looked pretty well for a guy that went under the radar for me especially. But the one thing that really killed this Bears team was their defense. They gave up 17 points in the fourth quarter, which is unexcusable. You had this game in the bag and you found a way to blow it. That's like the definition of being a Bears fan, honestly. It's the definition of being a Bears fan, and trust me, I'm a Jets fan and I understand your pain. But this Bears defense needs to hold their opponent's office if they're in the lead. Like, that was an unexcusable type of way to lose a game.
Yeah, to go off, like you said, an unexcusable way to lose a game. Like Matt was saying, it might have been a bounce-back game for Justin Fields, but he didn't get the job done. So was it really a bounce-back game? At the end of the day, win-losses count more than these stats. 2-3 weeks from now, we're not going to remember that he threw up 4 touchdowns. We're going to remember that he lost in a pretty close game. And then a few weeks from then, we're going to remember that he just lost, that they started off 0-4. They started off 0-5 or 0-6, whatever they start off within the next few weeks. We're not going to remember that it was a close game, nor that he threw up 4 touchdowns. So we got to look at it like that. In hindsight, yeah, he looked bright, but he didn't get the win. If he got the win, he could have won the next week with a lot more positivity, cleaned up if he did throw that pick and got the win. And like Charlie said, that defense let him down because, yeah, he did have a good game. That should have been his bounce-back game. That should have been a confidence booster for him, that offense, and that entire team. But that defense couldn't get it done in the fourth quarter. And I know how it feels to really play a good defensive game and then really just – I feel like that's more so veteran Russell Wilson coming in and veteran staff coming in and really winning that game for them late game.
Yeah, and as Charlie said, we are going to see Javonte Williams out. He is coming back from that knee repair, and we'll see how long this groin injury keeps him out. We are going to go to another game in this 1 o'clock window, one that might be an upset in some people's eyes, but here at home, me and Charlie predicted the Houston Texans to come on top. Pause for the Houston Texans to take this game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kenny Pickett, before he was out, 114 yards and a pick. Now he's dealing with his own knee injury, potentially not season-ending. They're saying there's no tears, but that meniscus might be damaged. What are we thinking about the Steelers? Are they in dire straits?
I think they are. I think this offense is imploding in front of our eyes. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if Matt Canada gets fired after next week. Like, I think this is Matt Canada's last game to prove himself why he should be the Steelers offensive coordinator. Like even last year, this Kenny Pickett didn't look well. Especially today, Kenny Pickett didn't look well. Najee Harrison, on the other hand, looked solid. He looked better than the last couple of weeks with 71 rushing yards on 14 carries. He also had the biggest catch of the game for 32 yards for the Steelers. George Pickens looks disappointing. Like, that's your number one wide receiver since Deontay's on IR for another few more weeks. He should be getting at least way more targets. But on the Texans side of the ball, C.J. Stroud is going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, hands down. He looks like by far the best rookie quarterback out of this draft, with 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. Nico Collins bounced back from last week, 168 and 2 touchdowns, looks very well. And the Texans just came in here and just dominated.
Yeah, to emphasize on Kenny Pickett, he 114 yards, 15 for 23, a pick. Wasn't really that good. Like I said earlier, I'm going to stand on what I said. Yeah, he's from Jersey. Yeah, he's from down the road. But we got to get him. He's the guy. He's not it. We got to. If you're the Steelers at this point, I'm looking into the next draft or two. If you don't want to hurt Tomlin's record, yeah, fight for the season, following season, tank for sure, man. You're out the Caleb Williams race, you feel like? I don't know, man. I feel like Shedeur and Tomlin would be a really good pairing.
I think CJ Stroud has come a long way. I think D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud have turned our conversations around. Remember week 1, we were talking about this team being nothing to sneeze at, kind of a joke. I feel like this Texans team is getting to be so good that it's literally helping me remember players. Remember Jerry Hughes, defensive end on the Bills? You know he's been on Houston? You know he got a sack yesterday? John Greenard from Florida? Haven't heard from him in a little bit. Now he has 2 sacks. D'Amico Ryans is getting the most out of his players, and I think that's the point I want to make the most about this Houston Texans game. They went against a really well-coached team with Mike Tomlin. Offensive issues be damned. But I'm just impressed with the Texans. Their young team is going to be one to fear by the end of the season. And unfortunately, Tev, I don't think the same thing can be said for the other rookie quarterback that was picked just ahead of CJ Stroud. Bryce Young, still having some growing pains. Carolina Panthers, not exactly doing the best to surround him with the talent. How are we feeling about that game against Minnesota? Being up early thanks to the early interception return touchdown and kind of giving that one up as it went on.
Going into it, I knew that with J.C. Horn out, that Jettas was going to have a good game. He did. He had 6 catches, 85 yards, 2 TDs. But more so on the Panthers side, like you said, Bryce Young, 25 for 32. Not bad accuracy. No TDs, no interceptions. 204 yards. I feel like more or less it's the stars around him and the O-line. At times you find him flustered. There was a flag late in the game and there was a late hit and you'd see no reaction from the O-line to defend him or to even help him up. Only a few guys came up to help him up. That's what I feel like we're missing. We're missing a few guys to really spark up our offense. Our defense holds up for pretty well. That's why I said I sympathize with Chicago fans because our defense held up for most of the game. And then third quarter, fourth quarter, you start to see those little folds and they can't hold up too long without the offense putting up something. And then it folds through. Guys like Adam Thielen, yeah, he had 7 catches for 76 yards. Terrence Marshall had 9 catches for 56 yards, but those are all coming from behind the line of scrimmage. This is my message to Carolina. Why have Bryce in if you're not going to let him throw the ball deep? Why have Bryce in if you're not going to let him throw the ball for more than 25 yards? At this point, just, I guess, bench him if that's what's going to benefit him. If you don't trust him with the full scheme of the offense, we're now going into week 5, 0-4. You don't own your first pick. You're going to have to trade for a disgruntled star now going to this offseason or hit insanely high in the second round. But I find that highly impossible.
Charlie, do we feel like Bryce Young needs some help around him? Maybe give him a mulligan of a year? Or do you think that Kurt Cochain's just outdueled him?
I really think it's just Bryce Young not having the best talent around him. Like what Tev said, the offensive line is very weak, losing Brady Christensen for the year with Ikem Ekwonu, Taylor Moton, and the rest of the offensive line isn't playing that well. But Kirk Cousins actually didn't play honestly that great as well. He gave up 2 easy interceptions in the first half, but it was mostly for the Vikings. It was mostly a run game because since they traded for Cam Akers the week prior, and the report saying whoever's going to be the hot hand will be the starting running back, and it was Alexander Madison taking majority of the work up in a pretty efficient manner. But with the receiving side, Justin Jefferson did not have 100 yards this week, but he also got into the end zone twice for his first trip to the end zone this year. But honestly, the Vikings almost disappointed, but they found a way to escape with a decent win, getting their first win of the year.
Yeah, I asked that. I tried to pose the question, but in reality, this is a difference of teams and rosters surrounding the quarterbacks. Bryce Young's going to be fine. I think he's going to ball out. Kirk Cousins, 2 picks, 2 interceptions, as Charlie pointed out. Didn't even have to throw it 20 times, despite the highly volatile game, despite finding Justin Jefferson. This was about the ground game, and Carolina couldn't keep up there either. Miles Sanders had 13 carries for 18 yards, or 19 yards, and Chuba Hubbard, I believe, finished the game as the leading rusher, which isn't what you want when you're spending a 4-year deal of $26 million on a running back in the free agent market. So there are definitely just some things to fix up in Frank Reich's offense in Carolina. For now, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt, especially Bryce. There's one more rookie quarterback that we've talked about keeping out of harm's way. He's a lot more mobile than the other two. Anthony Richardson almost getting it done against the Los Angeles Rams, mounting the comeback. He was solid. However, in the game back, after just coming back from a concussion, he carries the ball 10 times, gets another 50 yards. Once again, a weapon. But I'm just as worried about him, Tev. I feel like this guy might not finish the season for the sake of being put at harm's way so consistently. What do we think about this reckless use of Anthony Richardson? And have the Colts really learned nothing from Andrew Luck?
I'm just going to stand. This is going to be quick. Like I said, I'm going to stand on what I said. He's in the tent more and more. They're going to get him out. They've got to get him out of his way. If not, they need to file owners or players or someone needs to file a civil suit, or Andrew Luck himself needs to file a civil suit and be like, yo, I've been mishandled my career. I don't want to watch this young quarterback get mishandled. Someone needs to look into this team, because there's no way you're that blind to the fact that my star running back doesn't want to play because I don't want to pay him. As soon as I cut him that check, he's going to be fresh and ready to play. And then my O-line is banged up. And then the top pick that I had that I couldn't trade it out of is now getting banged up left and right because of my actions. So, I don't know. It's just
with Zach Moss there too now, they have a decent running back. 17 rushes, 71 yards, I believe, was his stat line. I know that's falls under the 4 yards per carry, but we saw him take 30 carries for 120 yards last week. This guy can be trusted to run the ball a lot and take some of that pressure off Anthony Richardson. I think the Colts are just, this might sound silly, trying too hard to win right now. I think that being competitive is fantastic, but if you're going to put your quarterback into harm's way and ruin his career for just 1 year of success, moderate success, when you can enjoy riches of it down the line, I don't know. I feel like this Rams team is the perfect example of that. They paid for just 1 year of success, but they did it when they were ready, and they're paying the price catastrophically. But not forever. We're seeing wide receivers like Tutu Atwell, Puka Nacua, step up for Matt Stafford, who's still there. He's still kicking. Matt Stafford was able to get this done. The Rams look good, going up 23-0 at the beginning of this game, and almost giving that one up. An inexperienced defense, still struggling, but Kyron Williams in the backfield, this Rams offense is impressive. I feel like for all we can say about our worries with the Colts, they showed up in that second half. They roared back, and they brought that to overtime. But the Rams earned that win.
You guys all nailed it. Colts came back and played pretty tough in the second half, but couldn't get it to overtime. Just want to say shout out for the Rams for a big win.
All right. Shout out Rams. I believe we have 2 or 3 more games in the 3 o'clock window. We're going to bring it down to possibly the most shocking one, even though the result wasn't all too shocking. The way it happened, with the Eagles having to inch out a 54-yard field goal by Jake Elliott in overtime against the Sam Howell Commanders. who were just embarrassed by the Bills last week. Sammy Howell sucks no more. I am proud of this guy, and I'm proud of the Commanders team for how they showed up to play. Maybe moral victories are few to come by, especially when it doesn't come with the real win. But how are you guys feeling about this? Yay to the Commanders or boo to the Eagles?
I'm not going to do yay or boo. I think it was just a very competitive game, coming off a really bad loss, especially for Washington, having no offense in that last game. The enemy said he was going to tighten some stuff and step up as a coordinator, offensive play caller, and he kind of showed it. This team was very competitive against a very tough Eagles defense. Sam Howell did not throw a turnover in this game. He had 290 yards and a touchdown, very efficient. The run game was not there, but what do you expect going against a really good Eagles defensive line? McLaurin balled out. Curtis Samuel also played a solid game, but the main thing is that Jalen Hurts finally stepped up. He had this. I think that's his first game of the year with no turnovers. The play calling looked really good. AJ Brown played out of his mind, and I actually saw a report later yesterday saying that the NFL was going to drug test him after that crazy game. So I just want to say congrats to the Eagles for finally showing that Brian Johnson could be a solid offensive coordinator. But shout out to the Washington as well. They played very tough. This was one of those tough games that you can win or lose. It just is what it is.
No, like Charlie said, A.J. Brown back. 9 catches, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tev, what was your takeaway from the game? Who stood out to you?
More so a divisional matchup. That last drive when Washington was driving the ball, got a few penalties, granted, to help them. But when they got into that red zone, a few seconds left, last play of the drive, look in the back of everyone's head, it was more so, we know they're going to score. Are they going to go for 2 or not? We knew BME was cooking. We knew Sammy Sosa was hot. We knew they were going to score. It was more so, did they want to go for 2 or not? Yeah, it sucked that they couldn't get it done in overtime. But yeah, it's a divisional matchup. The Eagles were a better team. So once it got to overtime, it was more so their game to lose.
Right, and Eagles luckily not screwing our predictions up, especially during Charlie's hot week. And Charlie, this isn't one game that you had over me. I had the Saints winning against Tampa Bay. You had the Bucks winning. You had Baker Mayfield showing off against a tough defense. But he did 3 touchdowns. How are we feeling?
I am feeling pretty confident in Baker Mayfield. He is back to his old 2020 Cleveland Browns self. He looks very composed in the pocket. He did have a pick, but I didn't really think that was really his fault. But that offense was completely embarrassed the Saints defense, especially through the air. Chris Godwin having a crazy game, stepping up for Mike Evans, who got hurt his hamstring, didn't return. Trey Palmer was pretty quiet, but he also got a touchdown. Kate Otten, solid 3 for 13 with a touchdown. But the Bucks defense also came out to play. They pummeled the Saints offense. Besides Kamara going for 13 catches in the game, which is pretty unusual, the Saints had no offense. This Bucks defense came to play, and this Bucks team could potentially win this division.
That was a crazy stat line that I was surprised to come across. I was shocked that Derek Carr only had on over 30 attempts, 127 passing yards, and those throws to Kamara kind of show me why. 11 rushes for 51 yards as well in his debut. Tev, what did you see from your NFC South rivals? Are the Bucks the scariest opponent that you have in your division?
They might be with Desmond Ridder actually crumbling a little bit now, coming back to reality. Yeah, Baker's really shocking that he's settling in. I mean, granted, he finally had a full offseason with a new team, finally able to have the keys to a reign with some star power around him and competent coaching staff. So, yeah, he's looking pretty sharp. More shocking stat to me is, why do they keep playing Derek Carr if he's banged up, obviously? Sit him. He's a vet.
That's what shocked me, too. We were talking about Jameis starting this week. That was part of my prediction. Mr. 30 for 30 was gonna throw a few touchdowns on his former team, but obviously that's not what we saw happen.
Man, I love Jameis. I just wanted to see him go out there, but granted, he did get a couple plays out there. But yeah, let's see him go out. I mean, the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, he's been finishing out games for them. I mean, why keep doing that and putting Derek through that? Derek, sit, you're a vet for 2 weeks. Sit for a week or two. You know what I mean? let Derek ride it out. Alvin Kamara had a good game. That's who I feel like we're forgetting. He looks like he's back to his old self. If he could break free and get those yards, should be dangerous.
For sure. And there's one last 1 p.m. showdown that we haven't gotten to. That would be the Titans and the Bengals. Zach is not here to celebrate his win. I thought that was a little shocking when Zach took the Titans to upset the Bengals after seeing a 1.5 leg Joe Burrow win the game against Los Angeles. This time, not the case. Joe Burrow, 20 for 30, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Jamar Chase still involved, 7 catches, about 75 yards. More than pretty much about half the passing yard offense. I believe Joe Burrow had more or less 160 yards. Well, how do we feel about the Titans? 1 week they're letting us down, getting smacked by the Browns and putting up only 3 points. And then the next, allowing only 3 points to the Bengals.
This Titans team is a definition of a grit and grind type of team. They remind me of like the Memphis Grizzlies back in like the early 2010s with Marcus Saul, Zach Randolph, Mike Conley. I think that's the best comparison for the Titans team because they don't have really any flashy talent. Like they don't have like a Jamar Chase or they don't have like a T. Higgins. They have they have solid pieces around them. Like Derrick Henry actually bounced back this week, had a huge game against the Bengals defense. DeAndre Hopkins looked he was shadowed through most of the game, but I want to give a big shout out to an underrated guy who doesn't get talked a lot. Nick Westbrook-Akine had 5 for 51 and a touchdown. Kind of like the biggest piece of that receiving core this week. But the main thing is that Joe Burrow does need to step up as a quarterback. He is dealing with that calf injury. That's going to linger through the whole season. Joe Burrow needs to find a way to keep himself protected and not throw any dumb passes. Zach Taylor also needs to step up as a coach. He needs to find a way to get these players open. He needs to find a way to protect Joe Burrow. It doesn't make sense, but shout out for the Titans getting a pretty shocking win over this really good Bengals team.
A shout out.
Yeah, you got to everything.
And if football wasn't funny enough, we saw this Cleveland Browns team who smacked the Tennessee Titans last week. Once again, just put up 3 points against the Baltimore Ravens, who have looked shaky to start the season and have their own injuries to go through. So while Deshaun Watson was out, while the Browns are still reeling from the loss of Nick Chubb, I was shocked by this one. How about you guys?
Nope. Big trust. Woo-woo. All the way to the Super Bowl. Panthers not making it, so the Ravens are.
Honestly,
short and sweet.
Short and sweet. But the thing is that that I didn't expect the Browns were going in to win this because I had the expectations that Deshaun Watson was actually going to play. We found out Sunday morning that he wasn't. Then at that moment, I knew this game was a wash. Shout out DTR, though, who played really good in the preseason, but playing in the regular season against starters for the whole game, you're going to get beaten up. This is kind of like a mulligan type of game for the Browns.
Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the UCLA product, 5th-round rookie. For those who don't know, 19 of 36, 121 yards with 3 picks. Did not have a great day. David Njoku, 6 for 46, was the leading receiver for the Browns. And Amari Cooper, the star, 1 for 16, 1 catch only the whole day. This could have just very well been a wash for the Browns. I'm going to not spend too much time on this one due to time constraints. We're going to move into a much more interesting game. The Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. How do we feel about this rookie backup quarterback losing in a pretty sizable fashion against their division rival? We got 2 of these this week. We're lucky.
Honestly, it looked like Derek Carr was playing for the Raiders this week with Aiden O'Connell wearing that number 4 jersey. It kind of took me back to last year with Derek Carr. But with Khalil Mack having a crazy day against the Raiders offensive line with 6 sacks. This team, the Raiders are screwed. Aiden O'Connell didn't play too bad. He still looked like a rookie quarterback, very washy. Josh Jacobs looked solid. He was really good. Not the greatest in the run game, but really good in the pass game.
Involved. 8 catches for 80-something yards.
Devontae Adams looked pretty slow, 8 for 75 as well. A little bit of a down week with no starting quarterback. But the Chargers didn't look that great either. Justin Herbert didn't have that great of a game, only having 167 yards, a pick, and a touchdown. Honestly, this was a game that who's going to play better quarterback, and obviously, who was the better quarterback? Justin Herbert, and they got a solid win out of it.
All right, I'm going to move us now relatively quickly. Sorry for those who are Las Vegas, Los Angeles Chargers fans. Once again, time constraints. We're doing some quick hits here. San Francisco 49ers versus the Arizona Cardinals. This was one that, once again, we did not question very much. Christian McCaffrey coming out with 3 touchdowns. On the other side, Michael Wilson with 2 receiving touchdowns. The rookie receiver, 3rd round out of Ohio State. Those are some of the stat lines that stood out to me. But the results, relatively expected. How about you guys?
Yeah, expected that one from me.
Yeah, expected that win. I don't know if it was just because they went against the team they went against. Only thing that really pointed out to me is Brandon Ayuk being that number 1 star receiving wise again. 6 catches, 148 yards. No TDs. Mostly went to Christian McCaffrey, but that's the really thing that stood out to me.
For sure. And then I'm definitely forgetting one of the games. Oh, it was now we have Dallas and Patriots. This one, this game, I'm a little what's the word? I feel a little guilty to admit that I had the Cowboys going into our podcast, and in the middle of the hype, not only did I switch that Panthers Vikings game for Tev, I don't regret that one, but I do regret picking the Patriots to win the Cowboys. What skeletons did I think they had buried? Zeke Elliott and Will Grier did not rat out the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy's secrets. I think that I'm wrong, and I have to issue a public apology because this was pathetic. 38-3. Even the Jets didn't do that, New England.
Patriots looked terrible in this game. Mac Jones had no chance against Micah Parsons in that pass rush, man. Giving up 2 picks, but this Patriots offense in general did not look great in the slightest. They didn't give up any running backs over like 40 yards this game. It was just a stout defense that they ran up into, and they had no chance. Shout out to Dallas.
Shout out to Dallas. What happened? Yeah.
The only thing that stood out to me is I'm pissed that Dak is having a good season so far, or a good game. 261 yards, 25 completions, 34 attempts. That's all really that stood out to me for him.
Fighting off the backup allegations for yet another week. And last night, I know you guys had the pleasure of seeing what I saw. The Jets be a competitive team. However, could not stop Andy Reid from getting his 250th win in front of Taylor Swift and Brittany Mahomes in New York City. This one's headline ridden. But my takeaway is Zach Wilson showing maturity. After that crucial fumble with 7.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, he went to that podium at the end of the game and took responsibility for his loss, something we didn't see him do last year. And for me, between the close loss to the Chiefs after thinking we were going to get embarrassed and Wilson's newfound maturity, I'm taking a lot of wins away from this weekend. Charlie, how about you?
Honestly, I am pretty shocked that Zach Wilson really outplayed Mahomes in this game. I did not expect this Jet team to even be competitive against the Super Bowl champions, but I was happy to be wrong. The defense looked like it came back to life. Offense looked like they came back to life. But the one thing is that the refs screwed us over with that quote unquote holding call at the end with that interception that would have crucially helped us win that game. That was just the blow to the team. It was such a tough way to go out and lose that. But shout out to the Kansas City Chiefs fans, I guess. You ran away with an easy win, but a tough win.
Isaiah Pacheco looked really sharp. 20 carries, 115 yards, about 6 carries, 6 yards to carry, and a TD. He looked really sharp this week. He's one of those guys that's coming up on contract. It was a late draft pick. And if my prediction's right, he might be the first guaranteed. I'm not saying it's going to be a crazy guaranteed contract. It might be the first guaranteed contract with running backs. I don't see the Kansas City Chiefs tagging him. He's very valuable and very young. I see him probably being the first guaranteed.
To Tev's point, Isaiah Pacheco not only set a career high in rushing yards yesterday, but a career high in receiving yards. I believe 150 total yards and one of the least probable touchdowns of the season so far in terms of all those next-gen statistics. That 48-yard touchdown was supposed to just be a 9-yard gain. But shout out to the Chiefs. They pulled this one out. The refs kind of helped with that, but a game's a game. We went down 17-0. I'm not going to dwell on this one too much. There are too many moral victories to take. And before we wrap up our thoughts for this Week 4 podcast, we have a couple predictions to make. One for tonight, the New York Giants hosting the Seattle Seahawks. I don't have the same faith in Daniel Jones that I did last year. Geno Smith has righted the ship after a rough week 1 in Los Angeles, or against the Los Angeles Rams. Give me the Seahawks. MetLife 0-2 this week. Sorry, guys.
I'm going to agree with you there. I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks in a pretty dominant fashion. I just don't think this Giants defense looks pretty competitive. I think the Seahawks receiving corps is going to completely embarrass that secondary. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba, this is going to be his breakout game as a rookie this year. I'm going to take the Seahawks in a pretty high scoring matchup for the Seahawks.
Yeah, I see the Seahawks as well. Similar reasons. I don't believe in the Giants. And also, in fashion, I don't believe in Daniel Jones. So, yeah, hammer the Seahawks.
So we got a 3-0. Zach, I'm hoping you're with us. I feel like we got the clean sweep here. Maybe he's somewhere playing contrarian to our ways, but we'll find out Friday. And before that, we have a very enticing game. And I say that with a little bit of irony, but not too much. The Chicago Bears heading into Washington, D.C. to play the Commanders. Sam Howell versus Justin Fields on primetime football. I'm actually a little excited for this one. Both showed what they have. I know we didn't get stats for Sam Howell, but I wanted to provide the stats. Sam Howell, 29 of 41, 290 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions, despite dealing with an offensive line that gave up 5 sacks. Give me the Washington Commanders in this one. The Bears look disheveled. The Bears look disorganized. This Commanders team looks like they're putting pieces together. Maybe not as fast as we hoped, but Commanders team's trending up, and I see them trending up again with the win against the Bears.
Well, I'm gonna go opposite from you. I'm gonna take the Chicago Bears this week.
Ooh.
I think they are motivated coming off a really bad loss to the Denver Broncos, which that should have never happened. They're gonna come in there and kind of embarrass this Washington offense. I think I think this defense is finally gonna come alive for this team, because the Bears were out with one of their best corners, Jalen Johnson, who's a really underrated corner in the NFL. But I think he should be coming back this Thursday and kind of embarrassing Sam Howell again. I think this is going to be one of those games where there's going to be no points on the board. Like last year, they had a game Thursday night last year, and it was disappointing. I think it's going to be the same exact way, but I think the Bears are going to come out here alive.
Tev, you have to split the tie. Which side are you taking?
I believe in Sammy Sosa.
Let's go.
Overtime loss. Probably hurt his feelings a little bit. I believe he has a chip on his shoulder, and he, like you said, that disorganized defense that left 17 points in the fourth. Don't let that happen to Sammy Sosa. He's going to close it out and win that game.
Sammy Sosa can do it. I'm a believer. One ugly game against the Bills that just took it to the Dolphins won't stop that from me. So by the time we see you guys on Friday, we will have the results of that and see how we fared in these 2 games, and also come with another bunch of picks for you with the Week 5 preview. I don't know about you guys, but I can't wait. Thank you guys for tuning along with us this time. We did hit a few time constraints. We're still getting better at this. We're still working some things out, but we're having a lot of fun along the way, and thank you for joining us. I'm Matt.
I'm Charlie.
And I'm Tev, man.
Like and subscribe, man.
Get off my screen.